All right, in this video, we're going to take a little bit more in-depth look at Google Docs, specifically the word processing application that's actually called Google Docs. And we're going to examine different ways that you could use it amongst yourselves as a faculty and staff, as well as using it with the students and how they might collaborate with each other. So first thing, we're going to head into Google Drive where we were at in our last video, and we're going to create a new. So where I left off last time, I was in my team drive and we were looking at how collaboration worked. So I'm going to do that same thing again. All right, I'm going to create a new, and I'm going to go to Docs. Okay, now that I have my document open, I'm going to go ahead and give it a name. And I'm going to share it with my KAdmin account, which, since it was in Team Drive, it should automatically be shared with that account. If I look at who has access, it should show me. Sure enough, technology department has both my accounts there. But just as a quick reminder, if I want to share something with somebody, or if your students are working on a project together, all they simply have to do is hit this blue share button and start to type in the name, and it should start to pop up there. Just hit enter and decide what access they will have, whether it's edit, comment, view. Okay, so then we'll take a look. Here's this, and then I will open it up on my other computer right next to it here. Now you'll notice up in the corner, we have the N. That means network administrator. That other account is working on this at the exact same time. So here I'm typing on this account, while over here, we're typing at the same time. So you can see that is real-time collaboration and how that works. So that's all I simply wanted to show you with that. Now let's move on to actually using Google Docs. So I can go ahead and highlight everything and delete it. Now you'll notice that cursor there. If I hover over it, it tells me who that is. So if you have 7, 8 people, each person will have a different color, and it will be color coded up here as well. And you can just hover your cursor over their cursor to see who that is if you can't really tell the color. First thing I want to show you after we move past collaboration is page setup. This is something that you're going to be using, well, if you're like me and don't necessarily like the automatic margins, or if you need to change from portrait to landscape. Another cool feature is the colors. So let's go to File, Page Setup, almost all the way down here to the bottom. And here's our menu. So portrait versus landscape, vertical versus horizontal. We can change our margins. So if this is something that will not be printed and you want to go edge to edge, you can do 0.1, 0.001, whatever you want the margins to be. You can change the paper size. Now, one of the downsides is you cannot customize this like you could in Word, where if you had a wide format printer, you could go like 44 inches wide or whatever you wanted. So you're kind of stuck with these options, but that's going to be just fine for the majority of stuff you're doing in class. Another thing you can do that's pretty neat is change the actual page color. So I go like that, there my color is now blue. But for the sake of tradition, let's just go back with white. Okay, so that's the page setup. Let's take a look at some of the icons here. We have print, undo and redo, paint format. We can zoom in. We're going to talk a little bit about these different settings specifically with headings later. Here are your fonts. It's a rather short list, but you can always add more fonts down here. But your typical stuff for writing papers and such, you're going to find in here. I am a Times New Roman person myself. Okay, you can change the font size. So let's go with 12. Bold, italic, underline. This is where you would change the text color, but if you click on it, you'll also notice that there's a highlight option. So if I have if I have my sentence, I can go ahead and highlight. Obviously, bold, italic, underline, and actually, if you do the command B UI, that works the same as what you're used to in a Word document with shortcuts. Let's go to highlight, and let's say we want it to be yellow. You notice it does not change the font color. It's doing the background of that specific sentence. So let's go ahead and do none on the highlight, and we're just going to leave that blank. Another thing while we're at it, I want to look at, let's say somebody's having difficulty with this word. If they do the two-finger click that I showed you in the last video, they can bring up this menu, and there's actually a define collaborating. And here it's going to pull it up in the dictionary and give the definition. So that's a great option for students as they're working here if they need to expand their vocabulary or they don't understand something that somebody else said. Right there, they can look it up and get the information they need. It's literally at their fingertips. All right, let's say we are working on like a newspaper or something like that. If you want to set up columns, historically, this was one of the complaints about Google Docs was there's no place for columns, and you had to manually figure it out by using tabs, and it was just not good time. One of the things, I believe it was back in like December of 2016, they snuck it in there under the format. They didn't make any big hurrah or anything about this. Columns just magically appeared. So here we can do 1, 2, 3 columns. We also have more options. So if you're going to make like a newspaper or something like that, this is where you can do that. You can change the spacing, and if you want there to be a vertical line in the actual document, you would click on this and you would see that. All right, so I'm not going to mess with that for this demonstration, but that's where you would find that if you need to do columns. Another thing I want to talk about is, let's just get some more text in here. Just put some gibberish in just for demonstration. If you're working on something like on a handbook or something that has multiple chapters or really lengthy, it might be beneficial to have a table of contents. And the way a table of contents is going to work inside of Google Docs is it's going to be looking for these headings. So heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, those are kind of important because that's going to give you the cascading of your table of contents. So if we go and look at, let's give this, let's go ahead and center it. Here's your centering tools. Also, here's a link. Here we have numbered lists and so on. But for basics, we are going to, let's go center and call this chapter 1. We'll go okay, so now if we go and highlight this chapter 1 and change it to a heading 1, you'll notice it automatically changes the font and stuff, so you can go back and change that. That's a little irritating to me, but it's not that difficult in the grand scheme of things to go back and change it. Let's do the same thing here. Make this a heading 1. What I'm going to do a little bit different here is change this to be heading 2. You'll notice those are different sizes too, as it automatically creates those. And heading 3. You notice that's even smaller. This a heading 1. Ready. And this a heading 2. Okay, now if we come up here and we go to Insert, all the way at the bottom there's Table of Contents. And you'll see over here it's got page numbers or with blue links. So I'm going to do with page numbers. And you'll see that automatically selected all of these. And if I had 12 pages, it would search out those headings and go ahead and put that. So let's go ahead and if I move this on to page 2, you'll notice that still says page 1, but we can click on update. And there we go, it changed it to page 2. And let's go ahead and move chapter 3 down to page 3. Again, hit refresh. And there we go. Table of contents is lining that up. So very beneficial if kids are working on a longer project, or even yourself if you're working on a research project. That's great to have there. Or if you're doing a lecture, if you're actually typing out your lectures, table of contents are very nice. There's actually an add-on that can make this even better, but that's going to be for another video. All right, let's take a look at adding page numbers. If students are working on a research paper, they obviously are going to need to have page numbers on there as well as headers and footers potentially. So to get to a header, all we have to do is go to the top of the paper and double click. And then we'll start typing in. All right, and you'll notice that there's this checkbox for different first page header footer. You click that and then it went away. Now if we go down to page 2, there it is. Come back up here. Okay, and then now we can go down here, remove this. And then we'll also see paper title, all caps, on the third page there. Now, there's no numbers. So the way we do that is we go to Insert, Page Number, and here's our different options. So this is going to be top right corner every page, bottom right corner every page, top right starting on the first after the title, and then same thing, bottom right starting on the first page after the title. So let's go ahead and click on this one for example. And here you see page 1 shows up over here, page 2, and now let's say that it is doing, let's switch it, and once that goes to 0, that goes to 1. Okay. Next thing I want to look at is adding images. Type in your papers and everything, that's going to be easy. Hit tab, change your font sizes, all that's going to be the same. If we want to add an image into this paper, we can go add image. We have a lot of options here. Take a snapshot is going to use the webcam on your device. By URL, if we want to copy and paste a URL for an image file that we found online, we can go to Albums, Drive, or even Search. So it's going to get images that are okay for students to use. So let's look up automobile. And we want this picture right here. We go ahead and hit select. And there, it adds it in. Now we can, by just simply clicking on it once, we can edit it a little bit. And you'll notice these change up top as well. We have a few different options. So let's shrink it a little bit by grabbing the corner. It's important to grab by the corner because it's going to keep it in proportion. If you just grab from the middle, it's going to flatten it. And if you did that and you didn't like it, just hit the undo button right here. And it takes it back to normal. So let's go ahead and shrink it down. Now we can work with it a little bit more. You have your wrap text and break text like you do in Word as well. And let's say we wanted to crop this a little bit. So you notice how the menus change up top. Like I said, if I click on this button is to crop the image. And you notice we get these black lines now. So if I grab this and bring it down, you notice the background gets a little bit grayed out after I hit return. There, it trimmed out some of the background. And if we want to get back, we just simply hit reset. And we can go back and do it again. Okay, we also have some image options. I don't know, you might use this in class, but just for example, here we can see that. It's in color. Transparency is going to make it see-through. You can change a little bit of the brightness. Go ahead and put that middle as well as the contrast. Reset that there. Another thing you can do is add a border around the picture. Let's make it something noticeable. Let's go 16. You notice that nice dark around the outside, and we can change the color there as well. So it helps bring a little, draws your eye to the image even more than you already did. And you can actually change it from being solid to being, you got a few different options here. Okay, another thing I want to show you that's very handy when you're working with students. This is, let's say, a rough draft, and they send it to you. They hit the share button. They ask you to proofread it for them, and you notice something's wrong. You can go like this, and this little button pops up over here. This is a comment. So for the sake of it, I'm going to do a comment on the other account so you can see what it pops up and looks like. Okay, and now you can see that this is, it didn't actually highlight like we talked about earlier using this tool. This is simply saying that there is a comment here. So now you see all the comments on the side, but if we click on this one, it's going to take you specifically to that comment. So we can see that the other account is letting us know that maybe you should revise this sentence. So what you could do is simply reply. Then that'll show up on their screen as well. And you'll actually, a lot of times you'll get emails with those notifications, let me know. So let me delete that. All right, and another thing you can do, if this is a group project and you want somebody specifically to look at something, if you go @, notice it changed it to a plus. People are used to using the @ for Twitter and Instagram, stuff like that. Plus is used for the Google Plus program platform. So if you do that and then type your message, then they're going to get a notification specifically to them that you want this specific person to look into this information. All right, now once all that's been said and done, you're happy with what it's like. If you click this resolve, the comment goes away. Another thing you can do is this viewing mode or suggesting mode. So if I go like suggesting, and I highlight this, and I think that it should be Arial in size 48 for some reason, it's doing a suggestion instead of actually making the change. It's suggesting that we change this. So we can either accept or reject. So if I go over on the other account and say, no, I don't think that looks very good, I'm going to reject. You'll see it pops back. So on the other computer, on the other account, I hit reject, and you saw what happened there. Just another example of real-time collaboration. So if there's a snow day and you guys still need to work on something, you still have that option just by moving it over this. So let me turn back to editing mode. Another thing that we can take a look at that's very beneficial for teachers is if you are wanting, if you have the students working on a group project and you historically have had that issue where one person does everything in the group, all of our kids have laptops and iPads, so they can all be working at the same time. There's no excuse that, oh yeah, there's 3 of us working on one computer. You can all be logged in at the same time, all doing separate parts. So you can look at revision history, and that's underneath the file menu, see revision history. So over the course of time, we can see, if this was a couple week-long projects, you can see all the different days that they've worked on it. and you can see who did the different edits. See how this is color-coded here? I haven't really done anything with the K-admin, the network administrator account, but those would show up with this purple background instead of the green. So we can see that the Kevin Reiniger account did all of these changes, as you saw while making this video. So that's very, very beneficial if you are assigning points or something to them working and sharing the workload on a project. Okay, sometimes they might say, oh yeah, well, we were sitting next to each other, or my battery was dead, so I just hopped on theirs and took care of it. So that will help alleviate a lot of those type of situations. It's not 100% perfect, because there will be situations that do occur. But that is my introduction to Google Docs. I think this is a very, very powerful tool that can be used in all classrooms, especially stuff that we have students working in groups. Not to mention, they don't have to print their papers anymore. All they have to do is hit this share button and send it over to you as the teacher. You just have to type in your name, and then you'll get a notification in your email as well as in your shared with me. Or if we get into it a little bit deeper further down the line and we take a look at Google Classroom, there's a lot of great options there that really utilize this platform. So that's all for this session. We'll take a look at Google Forms in the next one.